Hi, welcome back to Kentucky Farm Bureau's Bluegrass and Backroads. We're glad you could be with us today. We've got a great show. First, we're going to visit with an artist that puts a new bend on glasswork. And we're going to step on stage and visit a summer tradition that will have you singing some very familiar tunes. And finally, we're going to visit a farm that some famous retired racehorses are now calling home. Stay with us. We'll have all these fascinating stories and more as you travel with us today on Kentucky Farm Bureau's Bluegrass and Backroads. Dan Barnes of Lexington is well known for his upholstery and furniture design business. However, he's really making a name for himself with his art and creative glasswork, winning award after award.
I knew that if I started working in glass that I needed to do something to set myself apart. I wanted to stand out, and not in a boastful way, but you know, the art scene is a fickle world, you know, and I wanted to establish myself as unique and different. I went to Egypt in 2000, and that was really the start of the transformation. Everywhere where I went in Egypt, I saw the solar disk, this round image. And when I came home, I started thinking, what can I do with that solar disk image to develop it in my own way? And I came up with this concept of turning wood, a round disc, 30 inches in diameter, quite a large piece. It's layered up wood that's hollow on the inside, and I would cut that in half, and then I made an upper half out of stained glass using that piece of wood as a mold. Then once it's molded, then I turn it up and mount it on the top of that, creating a complete circle. And that's where the whole concept began to develop. And my thoughts on that were that in my solar disk, the bottom part being solid represented the earth, the upper part being glass and the light representing the sun. So I've kind of merged those two ideals together. You know, it seems like my whole life has been this series of, I've always said like I've had an angel on my shoulder, because when I've needed something, it just seems to come, you know, and I don't know how or why that happens, but it just has. But I did one of my first big shows was in West Palm Beach, Florida. I went down there and went to what was called Sunfest. It was a big art show, supposedly. Like 250,000 people come through. Well, I got down there, and it was, after driving 2 days, sitting there for 3 days, I realized that it was more of a party fest than an art fest. And I began to worry, because I'd spent all this money and invested all this time in packing up all this, you know, this was really one of my first big shows out of state. And I had sold one $300 piece. Until late afternoon on a Saturday. The show was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I had a man walk in my booth from Stuart, Florida. He just kept looking, and you wouldn't have thought, you know, cut off shorts, pair of tennis shoes, and had on a cowboy hat. And I thought, you know, this guy is just, you know, just kept hanging around. And he wouldn't say anything, and you know, just listening to me talk to the other patrons that were walking through. And he finally kind of got in front of my booth and crossed his arms and spread his legs out, and he said, "I'd like to make a purchase." And I said, "Well, you know, what piece are you interested in?" He said, "I want to buy the whole booth." True story. He bought the whole booth. It was quite a large sum of money for me. It allowed me to go purchase, within a few months, the lathe that I needed to really do the work professionally. You know, a lot of the work I do, these sculpture pieces, has well over 1,000 pieces in them, so it's quite an involved process, and several months usually for me to create one. They're truly a labor of love. Well, this was inspired by a trip to Hawaii, and if you look real close, you see this river of lava, which this actually looks yellow right now, but when that's fired, it's actually going to turn orange, kind of a bright orangey red. It's called a striker glass, and it doesn't have its true color until it's fired. This is what's called fused glass, and it's a natural progression from stained glass to do the fused work. It's done in the kiln, but you do it all with stained glass. It's layered up layers of stained glass. There's actually 3 different layers of glass layered up here. After doing the solar disc work, I've developed that further. I also do fused glass work, which I've developed somewhat, but I wanted another venue for more sculpture-like forms, and I wanted to push the envelope with my interpretation of a window, and that was where the 3D stuff started to come from. I started to see what I could do to manipulate glass and see how far I could push it. And believe it or not, the 3-dimensional glass actually has more strength than a flat panel. And if you think about the 3-dimensional quality of the glass when you're looking at it, the individual squares, think of each piece as like a facet of a diamond. As they come around the piece, they create the 3-dimensional look. It becomes that fluid form that you see as a finished product. But it's actually all flat individual pieces of stained glass. Every one I do, I've never done one exactly the same. Every one of them I do has a different glass pattern. They may look similar, and they are, but each one is unique. So every time I do one, it's a challenge, and that challenge I think is probably key to what I enjoy doing with the art. I intentionally refuse to do multiples, except for the Governor's Award, which I had to do 10 of. That was such an honor. That was, you do 10 of those. I work at reinventing myself. I'm constantly trying to develop new ideas and new things for several reasons. One, it keeps me going because I don't want it to become boredom, but it keeps them excited too when they come in your booth one year to the next and you've got something new and different for them to see.